How did a group of thieves manage to steal $18 million worth of maple syrup from Canada's strategic reserve without firing a single shot? But the million-dollar question remains. How did they transport 3,000 tons of liquid gold, and why did it take so long to discover?
$18 million worth of maple syrup was stolen.
Steal $18 million worth of maple syrup.
This story is one of the weirdest thefts we've ever come across.
St. Louis to Blandford, Quebec. A quiet morning on the Trans-Canadian Highway. The summer sun cast long shadows across the red brick warehouse. This wasn't just any warehouse. This was the Global Strategic Maple Syrup Reserve. Michel Gauvreau, an accountant from Veragramar, arrived for a routine audit. Gauvreau approached a stack, preparing to climb up for a physical inspection. He reached for a barrel near the top and pulled himself up. The barrel shifted too easily. A full barrel should weigh 620 pounds. This one moved like it was empty, checking barrel after barrel. Some were empty, others sloshed with a liquid that was definitely not maple syrup. His mind racing. He pulled out his phone and dialed the Federation. The Federation officials arrived within the hour. What they discovered would become one of the most audacious agricultural thefts in history.
August 2011. Quebec was experiencing a bumper crop year. Federation needed to rent additional warehouse space to handle the overflow. They found a perfect location in Saint Louis de Blandford, a massive facility. But here's the critical detail. The warehouse was divided into sections. The Federation rented the main space for their strategic reserve, but other sections of the same building were available for lease to separate businesses. No sophisticated alarm systems, no network of security cameras, just one security guard for the entire facility. And someone noticed. In late 2011, a group of individuals rented another section of that very warehouse. On paper, they were running a legitimate maple syrup export business. Trucks arrived and departed, nothing unusual. But these weren't ordinary businessmen. They were a carefully assembled team. Truck drivers who knew the routes, syrup dealers who understood the market, sugar shack workers who knew how the barrels were organized. Under cover of darkness, they would use forklifts to move barrels from the Federation section into their own rented space. There, they drain the syrup into their own containers, then refill the original barrels with water, reseal them, and quietly return them to the exact same spot in the Federation's rows. From the outside, everything looked normal. The barrels were still there. Security guards doing their rounds saw rows of blue barrels, just like always. They drain a barrel, load the syrup into trucks, ship it out through their supposedly legitimate export channels, then move on to the next barrel. Once they had the syrup, the thieves needed to sell it without getting caught. This is where the operation became truly sophisticated. They couldn't just flood the market. That would trigger suspicion. Instead, they trafficked the syrup in small batches to multiple buyers across 3 regions. St. Pierre had legitimate business relationships with buyers throughout North America. When he received shipments from Quebec, nobody questioned it. That's what syrup dealers do. They buy from producers and resell to manufacturers. He'd repackage it, mix it with legitimate inventory, and sell it to unsuspecting food companies who had no idea they were buying stolen goods. Others crossed the border into the United States, where demand was high and Federation regulations didn't exist. The stolen syrup was being consumed by innocent people who had no clue they were eating evidence of one of Canada's biggest heists. The thieves made another clever move. They didn't try to sell the barrels themselves on the black market. Instead, they used St. Pierre's legitimate export company as a front. On paper, everything looked legal. Bills of sale, transport documents, all properly filed. Month after month, they kept draining barrels, placing them with water, shipping the syrup out through legitimate channels, making money hand over fist, all while the Federation remained completely oblivious. Here's what makes this heist so remarkable. It went on for nearly a year before anyone noticed. But why? How did they get away with it for so long? First, timing. The thieves started during the summer of 2011. Maple syrup production happens in late winter and early spring. That's when sap flows. By summer, production stops. Barrels go into storage. Nobody's actively working with the reserve except for the occasional inventory check. The strategic reserve is exactly that, strategic. Second, the Federation conducted inventory checks. An auditor would walk through, count the number of barrels. They weren't opening every barrel to check its contents. Why would they? The warehouse was secure. Access was controlled. What reason did they have to suspect anything? Third, the thieves were meticulous about returning barrels to the exact same location. The visual appearance of the warehouse never changed. Nothing looked disturbed. Any security guard doing rounds would see exactly what they expected to see. When Gavreau made his discovery on July 30th, 2012, panic set in immediately. The Federation needed to know the full extent of the theft. They brought in additional auditors, started checking every single barrel. The process took 2 months. 9,571 barrels stolen. The Federation reported the theft to Quebec's provincial police force, the Sûreté du Québec. They launched one of the most extensive investigations in the province's history. More than 300 people interviewed. Over 40 search warrants executed across Quebec, New Brunswick, Ontario, and even into the United States. Forensic teams examined the warehouse. They found trace evidence on forklifts. They analyzed syrup kettles and scales. They reviewed shipping records, export data, and financial transactions. They started building a map of where the syrup had gone. The investigation quickly focused on unusual export activity from Quebec to New Brunswick. One name kept appearing in the records: Etienne St-Pierre. His operation had received unusually large shipments during the same time period as the theft, suspiciously large. On September 25, 2012, 2 officers from the Sûreté de Québec arrived at St-Pierre's facility in Kedgwick with the search warrant. St-Pierre's partner, Angel Bossé, knew the Quebec warrant had no legal authority in New Brunswick. When officers showed her the paperwork, she reportedly pretended to wipe herself with it, gave them the finger, and locked the door. Despite the colorful resistance, police eventually gained access. Inside, they found hundreds of barrels filled with stolen syrup. On December 18th, 19th, and 20th, 2012, police moved simultaneously across multiple locations. They arrested 17 men connected to the heist. The operation was coordinated like a military strike. No warning, no chance for suspects to flee or destroy evidence. Richard Valliere, the alleged mastermind, was arrested at his home near Quebec City. The notorious barrel roller who'd openly operated in the black market for a decade, now facing charges of theft, conspiracy, fraud, and trafficking stolen goods. Also arrested, Yves Caron, the inside man whose spouse co-owned the warehouse. He'd provided crucial information about layout, security, and schedules. Without him, the heist would have been nearly impossible. Etienne St-Pierre, the New Brunswick reseller who'd helped move the stolen syrup into legitimate markets. His operation had been the crucial link in laundering the stolen goods. Sébastien Utris, a trucker who'd helped transport the syrup between provinces. The trials began. In 2017, Valliere was sentenced to 8 years in prison, plus a $9.4 million fine. If he didn't pay the fine, his sentence could extend to 14 years. He appealed, getting the fine reduced to $1 million in 2020. But in 2022, Canada's Supreme Court reversed the reduction. The full $9.4 million stood. Caron received 5 years in prison and a $1.2 million fine. St-Pierre got 2 years minus 1 day, 3 years probation, and an $850,000 fine. Justice had been served, but questions remained.